And joining us now, of course, she's a senior producer at UCF Athletics, did the great feature that we're going to talk about there on Alea White. And that is, of course, Sami Kincaid, my good friend, joining us. Finally, I get to talk to you on the record and interview. This is fun.
We finally get to do this. And you were asking me just last week, when are we going to finally do an interview? But it's roles reversed from what we had talked about.
Yeah, that's true. Well, you got more business stuff to worry about because you did a great feature on Alea White. And it was funny. It was good to see you doing that. First, for those that don't know the story, tell us the backstory on Alea White, because this is just more than a softball story.
Yes, it's definitely more than a softball story. Alea has overcome anything she's faced with. It seems like she overcomes. You can see that on the softball field, but she's really been doing that since day one. She was born at 24 weeks. And if you don't know, you're supposed to, a mother's supposed to go 40 weeks being pregnant, not 24. So she was very premature, born at 1 pound, 9 ounces. And they had a lot of hurdles that they had to get through while they were in the NICU. She was in the NICU for 3 months. And whenever you're on oxygen for that long, your retinas will start to detach. And so they had checked her eyes and they saw that her retinas were detaching, and they had to immediately fly her to Miami for emergency surgery. And she has over 1,000 lasers in one eye and almost 1,000 in the other. So it's really a miracle that she can see the way that she does. And whenever I was talking to Coach Bear about it, I was like, when did you hear Leah's story and just everything she had to go through as an infant? And she said that it came up one time that Alea was saying that she couldn't see signals from a certain distance away because of the surgery she had on her eyes. And that kind of just put things into perspective, like how she's able to do everything now. It really is a miracle. And Alea speaks a lot about her faith. And we touched on that a little bit in the piece, but just talking to her parents, you can see why Alea's as special as she is.
Now, I've known about the story, obviously, since I've known her since she walked on campus as a freshman. I've gotten to know her parents since then, so I knew the story. But they're very, Alea's very guarded when it comes to that kind of stuff. She's not somebody that likes attention. She doesn't want to be focused on her. She doesn't want to think that she's telling the story so people can feel sorry for her, because she doesn't. She's her own independent. She's doing her thing. When did you catch wind of this story? Was it tossed to you? Did you find out on your own? Take me through that when you found out, and then kind of trying to convince her and her parents to come and do this story.
So I have had the chance to work with Alea ever since she was a freshman. So I'm very lucky because she is like that. She is very guarded. It's not that she opens up to a ton of people. And so I've been lucky enough that since I have been with her since freshman year, she trusts me a lot. And anytime I ask her about doing something, she's been pretty open to it. So it was actually Sean, the SID, that came to me. It was last season because we thought she was going to break the record last season, but then everything with COVID pushed things back. And so he said, hey, like, it's very likely she's going to break this record this season. What do you think about this? And so I brought it up to Alea. It was about this time last year. And she was like, yeah. And I want to say that we were actually doing interviews for National Girls and Women in Sports Day. And it was her and Coach Bear in there doing the interviews in front of the green screen. And she was kind of timid about it, but she was like, yeah, we can do that. And I was like, well, where are your parents at? Do you think they would be up for doing an interview? And so her parents have known about it for a while as well. And I was willing to drive over by Tampa, but they were like, no, like, we'll come to you. Like, they were just so excited for her to have her story told and other people to hear it, because they made a video. I think it was her aunt that made the video for her 18th birthday to try to help other moms and dads that are going through having a baby in the NICU, because like Alea's mom was saying, people hear that you have a premature baby and that it's a small baby. They don't realize how small that baby is. And Alea also had some heart problems. And so it was more than just a small baby. And so they were just so excited to spread hope, give hope to those other parents, and not just for Alea. Of course, they want Alea's story to be told and see other people to see everything she's overcome, but they were just so excited for this story in general to get out there and help others.
So I didn't know that this was in the works for a year. the season gets shut down, canceled, basically. What goes
Mhm.
through your mind knowing that, oh, boy, did you feel like, oh, that's it? I blew my chance to get the story? Because back then, we didn't know if she would be back for another year, if those spring athletes would get an extra year. That wasn't decided until, I think, a month or two after the season was canceled. But, like, take me through that once this, because she was literally about a week or two away from
It
breaking
was
the
very
record.
close.
Yeah, I mean they were in California. They were on the verge of going to Ole Miss. She was at 77. And I was keeping track because I'm calling the game, so I want to selfishly want to call it. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, oh boy, she might actually have to call this on the road. She might break it on the road. And then next thing you know, the season ends. So from your standpoint, what goes through your mind once that happened? Do you feel like this was slipping away?
Um, at that point, right whenever season got canceled and everything, not really. It honestly, being inside of athletics, and I mean probably for you as well, but it just seemed like that first month, like everything kind of stopped and stood still for a second. But that month went by so fast just because you're finding out new things every single day, just from what we can do with the student athletes. What can we, because there were certain things that I wasn't allowed to ask the student athletes. So I wasn't allowed to talk to them about what exercises they were doing at home because that's a violation. And they wanted to make sure, the NCAA wanted to make sure that the student athletes were getting to, because everyone was going through so much mentally during that time. And they wanted to make sure that the student athletes had that time to spend with their family to be able to cope and take in everything that was going on. They didn't want the student athletes to feel pressured from anyone it, associated with athletics. So there was a lot of questions I couldn't ask. And so my mind at that point during that month and a half before we knew if she was going to be able to come back, it was more focused on what stories can we tell right now, not necessarily like, oh crap, what have we lost out on? I wanted to, because at that point we were like, how do we get videos out if we can't be around anyone, if we can't, there's no sports going on. So my mind kind of switched to that angle, I would say, of just what can we do? Because the student athletes also we want our whole point, the whole point of why we have our jobs is to give them a platform for them to be able to talk, say what they're feeling, say what they're going through. And so what could we do at that point to give them that platform? Um, I would say though, during the summertime, whenever we realized a little bit more of what was going to be happening with the spring sports and what players would be coming back and whatnot, that's whenever we were like, okay, we can't let this story fall through the cracks. And I wrote down all the stories that I had been working on to make sure that we revisited it for in the fall or spring.
So you wait till the spring, now at this point, are you thinking, do I start on this before the season starts? Or you wait till the season starts? Take me through now that process. We fast forward. We know she's coming back.
Yeah.
They have this fall, which is kind of unique because it's so bizarre. We still kind of don't know what's going to happen. Football's going, but we don't know how that's going to go. Fall sports at UCF gets pushed back. The other Olympic sports get pushed back to the spring, which is a whole other story. So it's basically football. We're all figuring this out on the fly. Next thing you know, we get through that. Now you're in January. Hey, this is going to happen. So take me now through that as you now start thinking about not only other features, but specifically her in this feature situation.
Yeah. So there was some things I could do beforehand, like ask her parents for pictures. But I honestly didn't even get the pictures until the day that she broke the record. So this was actually a very quick turn on this video. So I did the interviews before the game with her parents, and then she broke the record. And then as soon as the game was finished, that's whenever I interviewed Alea and Coach Bayer. And then I couldn't really work on it Monday because I had multiple interviews already scheduled. And so I basically put it all together on Tuesday. I finished it at about 1 a.m. on Tuesday, and then sent it to Sean the next morning for it to be posted. But since that was game day, he waited till the next day to post it. So it was actually a pretty quick turn, but that's how pretty much everything is right now, because you never know with COVID if something, for
Sure.
example, we were geared up for 2 basketball games on Saturday. And
Right.
while we're in the women's game,
Right.
we get word that the men's is
Yeah.
canceled. So it's just everything is so on a fly right now. You just have to be ready, prepared for whatever. And it's it's definitely it's got everyone's adrenaline going.
No,
Everyone's working off of adrenaline for sure. Because you don't know what's going to be thrown at you, but you're just grateful that there are things thrown at you to still do,
sure.
because we didn't know what sports were going to look like. And so I'm glad that I had the time to prepare for Aaliyah's story, really get to know it, because if I had gone into that, say, I mean, I credit local TV for why I can turn things quickly, because you have to turn things within a day in local TV. But I'm glad I had the time to watch that video that her aunt had done to really get to know her story a little bit more. So then whenever I'm doing the voiceover, I can kind of script it out a little bit more. I had a better idea of how I wanted to tell the story. So then I could angle my questions a little bit more direct, because I knew what I wanted to talk to her parents about. I knew what I wanted to talk to Bear about. I knew I wasn't going to talk to Bear about anything with the NICU, because she wasn't there for any of that. I wanted to talk to Bear about Alea now. So why ask those questions? So that made it a whole lot easier whenever going into Sunday to be able to turn it quick.
Now that's what's fascinating to me. So you show up. I saw you there on Sunday. Now I was surprised that she got the ball that day. She had pitched the Friday game against New Mexico State, gotten the win, and then Sunday I thought Bree would, they would go with Bree. She gets to start. Were you planning on doing that interview even if she wasn't going to pitch, or was it that you got tipped that? Oh, give me the breakdown on that, because that kind of, I'm fascinated by the timing of this, because I have so many questions about that. Because did you know she was going to pitch that day, and what would you have done had she not pitched that day and broken the record? Would you have had to sit on the story?
Yeah, so that is a huge plus to working for the team is you get tipped. And so it was actually that morning they made the decision, though. They said, you know what, we got a really big game on Wednesday. And although Alea hadn't talked about it, it was still hanging there over her head. And they wanted her to be able to pitch with her mind clear on Wednesday. So they're like, let's just go ahead and get this, let her have this moment. So then she doesn't have to have that lurking over her head for the next game. So it was probably around 10 o'clock that morning. I had, no matter what, planned on interviewing her parents that day. So I was still going to interview her parents at noon. But then since we've had so much time to plan for this, we had 3 cameras there for the moment. One on her parents, one that was just Alea, which is what I was filming. And then Dalton Conrad, the other senior producer, had more of like a team wide shot. And he was down on the field. So he was able to get really close whenever they did the ice bucket on her. So that was really cool to be able to have that many cameras, because normally we don't have the resources for that. But since we had so much time to plan for this, we were able to say, and that's another reason why they worked with us so much and tipped us off, because we're like, hey, we got soccer going on at the same time. Can you please let us know? Because if she is going to pitch, we want to make sure we have 3 cameras there to capture everything. And so Bear is always great to work with. And she let us know it was probably about 10 o'clock that morning.
That's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Otherwise, we probably would have been there, all 3 cameras on Wednesday night.
Okay, so you would have just been following her until, basically.
Mm-hmm. Until, yeah.
And that's so wild, too, because with softball, it's so unpredictable. She could have broken the record coming in relief, for all we know.
Yeah.
So were you, like, you must have been, like, following every game, going in Fort Myers to see, okay, if she gets the win or not. And we'll get to the interviews in a second. But now this game's going on Sunday. You're rooting for her to, break it now. Like, this is it. Like, this could all be hit in one spot, right? And are you nervous? What's going through your mind as this game is unfolding?
Well, I'm not going to lie. I was a little nervous. Me and her parents both talked about it, because the weekend before they had run rolled, and then on the 3rd day it got beat. And so they were saying, you know what, like, let's really hope the same thing doesn't happen this weekend. And so I was a little bit nervous, because so Dalton was actually over at soccer filming. And then I texted him like, hey, it's looking like, because we scored 5 runs in the first inning. And so I was like, oh, this is probably going to be a quick one again. I'll text you whenever we're at the bottom of the 4th for you to head on over. Or yeah, in between top and bottom of the 4th, so you can head on over. And then I texted him, and sure enough, we didn't score anything until after that. I was like, I just jinxed us. We're about to have the same result as last weekend. I was so nervous. I had jinxed us. But I was glad that she was able to get the win that Sunday, and we were able to capture the moment that day, because I know that it would have been so much more stress on her on Wednesday.
No question.
For that game.
No question. And what's wild about that, she was throwing a perfect game going into the 5th inning, and then had a no-hitter, Imagine that all of a sudden being part of the storyline if she's able to do that, and maybe if they would have gotten a run rule that she might have been able to pull that off.
Yeah.
Didn't happen, but that was also going on during the game.
I
So
don't think I think that's the only thing that could make the storyline better, other than how she ended it on a strikeout. That's
right,
the only thing that could have made it better.
right. And it's so wild, and what's cool, and people I encourage to watch the video. So when she gets the strikeout, you have so many different angles. You have the angle they celebrate with her teammates, but you also have the parents' reaction to it, and that's where having all those camera angles really paid off, right? Like, I mean, you probably in the back of your mind, you wanted to see the parents' reaction as well. You wanted to get that as well as her reaction and the teammates, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's not even just I wanted to see it. Like, I'm such a sucker for seeing the mamas and the daddies, but I wanted to get that so Alea could see her parents' reaction, because she's not going to be able to see it in
Right.
that moment. So I wanted her to be able to see it too, because that's such a big moment for them as well. Everything that they had to go through, and hoping that their little baby girl was going to be okay for that 3 months. And even after the 3 months, everything was still unsure then if she was going to be able to get to where, I mean, obviously get to where she is now, but just be a normal little girl, you know? So I definitely wanted to get that for Alea as well, so that she could see her parents and just how proud they are.
No, it was tremendous. Let's talk about, you talked to the parents. What was that like? I know Mike and Terry for a while. Terry is definitely one of the most positive people. I mean, she puts a spin at positive and everything on that. But yet, this is a very difficult subject. It's not an easy thing to do. I mean, when I've tried to describe it on the broadcast, I go Cliff Notes version, because if I go too long, I kind of lose it emotionally, and that's, you know, now you have to bring up these questions, you have to bring up these topics. What was that like as you talk to them?
Well, that's one thing that especially um, I kind of credit my local TV. I mean, it's just even just being a person though in general, but being in local TV, I had to see a lot of really hard things, and it's hard to talk to the families about the things that you need to interview them about. And so the big thing is I just want them to see like how much I care too. So I got there a little bit early just to talk to them, because I wanted to hear just more, because other than talking to Terry on the phone, I've never talked to them before. And so I wanted them to know that I'm here because I want to tell your story and your daughter's story. So um, there was a lot of tears before the interview, and Terry hated me because I made her take her sunglasses off for the actual interview. She was like, "Why are you doing this to me?" But it's just, I think that even though it is very hard to talk about, all she kept saying was how they made that first video to give others hope. And so while it is hard to talk about, it's something that I know that they do want to talk about in the right where they feel comfortable talking about it, but they do want to talk about it just so they can still continue to give hope. And there was so many replies after that video, that and messages that I got from people saying, "Oh, I was born at 1 pound 10 ounces. I was born at 1 pound 8 ounces." And just hearing all of these other stories of people that went through the same thing, and it was them just saying like how cool it was to hear another success story, and see how much Alea has been able to do ever since then. So
You
it's cool getting to hear so many other people's stories.
Yeah, and we'll get to the reaction because it exploded once it came out. So you get to interview the parents, you interview Alea, she breaks the record, you talk to Coach Barrett. So now you got everything. Now you got to put it all together. Take me through that process. And did you put a lot of pressure on yourself on doing this? Not that you don't do that for other features, but this is a very delicate story that you wanted exactly right. Because and you probably put some internal pressure on yourself as you went through this. Take me through it.
Yeah. So I did work on it a little bit Monday morning, because I did put a lot of pressure on myself for this one. I mean, every creative goes through a creative rut where it's just like, and especially right now, there's so many that are going through that rut just because it's, okay, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. Okay, that's canceled. So we got to switch to this. You got to do this, you got to do that. And you have no schedule. And so it's been hard for a lot of creatives to get through this last year. And so I was definitely in a creative rut, and I was not in a good spot at all. And this story was the one, they're not just giving the moms and the dads with the preemies hope, they gave me hope. They really did. And I got up at 4 in the morning on Monday morning, and I'm crying while I'm cutting the sound bites. And because it finally, I don't want to, feel like I'm tearing up right now talking about it again, but it just felt so great to finally feel like I'm telling a story that's not just highlights or what are we doing great on offense or defense. Like you're actually getting to tell a story that has purpose, that has, I got to dive, wow, dive deep back into my passion again. And it's not, I mean, sports are definitely my passion, but this is more than sports. So this was definitely a passion project for me, getting to tell this story. And so, like I said, Monday morning, I went through all the sound bites and I cleaned up the audio because you could hear people yelling in the background. So I try to clean it up to make it clear, and then chop all of that up and kind of put the sound bites that go together next to each other. And then I always duplicate my sequence. So then I always have those sound bites cut up just in case if I ever want to come back to one. But then Tuesdays when I really got to editing, I had these songs picked out for a while. Actually have a playlist on my phone, and the playlist was specifically for this Alea video and the KZ comeback. And so,
Right.
so these songs I've had picked out for a hot minute. And whenever she was talking about her faith and her parents were talking about her faith, I knew exactly what songs on the playlist I was going to use for this video. And so then Tuesday, I really started putting it all together with the music. I took the version with the lyrics and then also the instrumental and mixed that. That probably took the longest to do. For some reason, the instrumentals were not matching up with the music with the lyrics. So it made it very difficult for me. But I think I could add DJ to my resume now after mixing those. So I felt pretty accomplished after that. But that took majority of the day on Tuesday. And then it was writing out the rest of the script and getting going from there. And like I said, I finished probably about 1:00 in the morning on technically Wednesday. So yeah.
Now, are you on strict deadline? Because I know the feature aired during halftime of the UCF women's basketball game against Temple, but it also was released on social media Thursday, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
So, was there a strict deadline? Take me through that decision process, because I know all your features don't necessarily get released on social media, because some of them are airing on ESPN Plus, then it comes out after that, or vice versa, or a lot of different stuff. But so, take me through that process.
Right. For this one, there was really no deadline. I gave myself a deadline because I wanted it to, I mean, it is kind of time sensitive since she broke the record on Sunday. I obviously don't want it coming out in a week or two from then. So I gave myself that deadline of having it done Tuesday night. So that's why I was like, I'm going to stay and I'm going to get it finished tonight. And then I'll go home and it'll be done so Sean has it on Wednesday. He can post it whenever he wants. So I gave myself that deadline. The only time that I really have deadlines is for like the quest. That's really the only video that I have a deadline for, unless it's another time sensitive one. Like right now I'm working on a women's basketball piece that's time sensitive. So that one will go out during the tournament next week. So I still have some time to work on it, but this one did not have a deadline. I just gave myself that deadline. Yeah.
So the story comes, the feature comes out Thursday. It explodes on social media. It explodes it. I mean, the softball fans are very loyal. They know how to find stuff, as you've seen. So they find things quickly. And this grabbed a lot of people, even non-softball fans. Were you surprised at the reaction that you got? And then what was the reaction from the Whites?
I actually got a text message from them that like right after that, and her mom's text made me cry. It was just so sweet, and she was just so thankful, and that's what makes it worth it. Like I left the office at 1 a.m. I had to be back at 5 a.m. for rowing to go out onto the water with the rowing team Wednesday morning at 5 a.m. And so going on no sleep, and you're just so exhausted. Like I was saying, leading up to doing this video, I was just so exhausted, borderline burnt out. You needed to find that one passion piece. And so I felt so much better after doing this video. But then whenever you get text messages like that I got one from Alea and from her mom, and it just really makes it worth it. It makes all the sleepless nights, all the hours editing, it really makes it worth it. And that her text really meant a lot. I teared up getting her mom's text. Um, and so that was really cool from them. I even had a USF fan reach out to me and said, "Hey, I used to help coach her whenever she was younger. I had no idea about all of
Right.
that." That was really cool to see. So that was pretty cool. That even that shows that USF's paying attention to what we're doing.
Right. Because,
They can
well,
act like they don't
right.
like us, but they're paying attention to what we're doing.
Well, and that's
And
like,
so,
yeah, I agree. I agree. And that's because it's more than a softball story. And I think that's what I think probably
mhm.
hit you. Just, this is not just, like you mentioned, it's not a highlight clip. It's not like, yeah, that's a softball player and she's had this great career, but it's more than that.
Right. Yeah. And I even had some old friends from high school that they knew of Aaliyah. One of them, she played softball at Belmont, and she said she had heard of Aaliyah, and but obviously we're a little bit older than Aaliyah, so never played. She never played against Aaliyah, but she had heard of her, and she was like, "That's so cool! Like that just made me miss softball so much, and miss because Aaliyah talks a lot about her teammates and how she can't do it alone." And she was like, "I miss that family atmosphere being with the girls on the team." So that was cool to hear from that perspective too.
When, obviously, when you do a feature like this, you're not going to be able to put everything in. So I'm
Mm-mm.
sure I know your face says it all. Is there one or two things that you're like, man, I wish not that you wish you could have put in, and you probably feel satisfied what you put in, but there's that one or two things where like, man, if I had more space, I could have included this that maybe was interesting. What jumped out, if anything?
Yeah. Whenever I ended up having to make it a voiceover because I didn't have the space, because you never really want to make a video over. I mean, this one was 3:30, and that's about as long as you want to make one. Usually I try to stick to like 2:30. And so her mom she was talking about her father's wedding ring that they put on Aaliyah's, well, it was Aaliyah's father's wedding ring that they put on Aaliyah's wrist, and how it looked like a bangle bracelet. And it was whenever she was talking about how a lot of people, they hear premature baby, they think small baby, but they don't realize. And then she said that they were showing the pictures to somebody, and they said that Aaliyah looked like a baby bird because she didn't even look like a baby because she was that small. And just how she said it, and she was getting choked up whenever she was talking about it. It was just a very emotional soundbite. That was definitely one that I wish I could have included. It was that soundbite though was probably about 30 seconds, and the whole part of her being a premature baby was, I want to say, 45 seconds to a minute. So that was hard to fit that piece in. So that's why I used it as a voiceover. I just took the information from what her mom said and used that as a voiceover, but that's definitely something I wish I could have included. And her mom also had a very sweet, I said, "Is there anything you want to say to Aaliyah?" And she looked into the camera, and uh, she's so sweet. But Miss Terry absolutely lost it, saying how much she loves her and how proud they are. Not just that, she goes, "Not that you can just throw a ball fast, but we're proud of the human that you are." And it was just so sincere and so genuine and just so sweet. And I wish I could have included that. Um, I was actually going to send that clip to Aaliyah. So I'm glad we're talking about it, because I'll go do that once we get off of here.
Glad I could help. Glad I could help. When you watched it, because I've watched it a good number of times, and it tears up. It's a tearjerker. I mean, I think Tom Rinaldi would be proud of you. I think you're giving a run for
That's
his
who
money.
I want. That's who I look up to. That's like my dream job. So that means a lot to hear.
Well, I think you did a heck of a job, because I'm not alone. I've had people tell me that they broke down during it. When you watched it, the final product, when you watched it, did you break down?
I did. I cried a lot while putting it together. When it was finished, I cried a lot during this one. Um, Aaliyah's such a special person. I mean, anyone, you don't have to know her story to know that how special she is. She is just everything. She's so grateful for it. And whenever, that's why I love interviewing her. And like I said, I've been interviewing her since her freshman year. And every single time, it's just thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you so much. She's just so grateful for absolutely everything. And she tries to find positive. She's always so happy. So just being able to tell Aaliyah's story, that just meant so much to me. So I broke down a lot throughout this one.
And I'm glad she opened up to you on that. I mean, I would imagine that was tough for her. Was it tough for her to talk about it when you interviewed her? Because I know there was that one moment in the piece where she's talking about her parents and what they've meant to her, and what, I mean, she almost broke down. I could tell that she kind of needed a minute there,
Yeah.
because I've known her pretty well. How did she handle that when you talked to her?
She definitely was talking different during this interview than she normally does. Um, and you could tell it's because she's trying to be strong and hold it together through it all. Normally, she's very lighthearted whenever she's
Right.
doing the interviews. And this time she was very, not stiff, but, and she was almost yelling instead of just talking. So you could
Yeah.
tell that she didn't feel as comfortable, or she was nervous to talk about as much, because usually whenever I talk to her, it's about softball. It's not about her, Alea, the person. So you could tell her body language was very different this time. But I'm glad she did open up, and she did allow herself to feel those emotions while she was talking, which is what you were talking about when she was talking about her parents. And we almost had to redo the beginning right after that. And she had tears coming down. Are you serious right now? I was like, I'm not going to do that to you, Leah. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, yeah. Don't tease her. Yeah. She,
So,
trust me. I've had that too in post games. Like, what are you gonna ask me? What you're gonna, we're gonna ask me first in advance. I'm like, no, I want you to get used to answering questions nonchalant. I missed
yeah,
when she first started, because she did not like doing interviews when she first got here.
no,
And
she did not.
No, but she's grown, and very well. You mentioned your background. Talk about your background prior to coming to UCF, because it sounds, you've mentioned it a couple times that probably helped you make this feature. So tell the audience that may not be aware what you did prior to coming to UCF and be a senior producer.
Yeah. So my career actually started at the University of Tennessee. I was working for VFL Films in a very similar role, but it was more of a GA kind of position. And I was there for the start of the SEC network, but my main role was focusing on features. I got to sideline some for the SEC network, but it was mainly focusing on the features. And my boss at the time, Lynn Cudson, he really challenged me to take myself off camera and just let them tell the story, not even have a voiceover, just let them tell the story. And I think that's probably what helped develop me into the best storyteller and helped me become the storyteller that I am today. And so then once I was there for about a year and a half, 2 years. And then I went with SEC Nation, and it was cool getting to go, because whenever you're working with a team, a lot of the stories fall into your lap because you're there with the team. They're right there. You're the first person. If the SID sees something, hey, saw this on the road, heard about this on the road, I think we should do something. You're right there, so it's easy. But whenever I was with SEC Nation and going to all the different schools, I would help out with the interviews at each of the schools. I would go midweek with a cameraman, and it was cool seeing how it really showed me how important relationships are and building those relationships, because they don't get that inside like I do now, or like I did at Tennessee. And so that really helped me in figuring out, like, okay, I need to make sure that I become close with this person, because they are the ones that are there for everything. And then I wanted to be based out of one city. So while SEC Nation was a ton of fun, I had all of my stuff in a storage unit, and I was gone 6 to 7 days out of the week, sometimes 7 days of the week. I was in a different city. So I wanted to be based out of one city. And that's whenever I got into local TV. And local TV is definitely what has helped me be able to turn packages fast. So especially whenever I was up in the communications department, I would do the recaps after practice and whatnot, or one of my students would, and those had to be done super quick. So local TV definitely has helped me a lot in this role, and just being able to get content out there faster, but especially whenever it comes to, all right, I'm going to give myself a tighter deadline. So I'm going to have to like figure this script out with hardly any sleep and make sure that it's the best story being told, and that it's doing Alea and her family justice. That's the big thing, is we want to make sure that we're doing them justice and telling the story the way that they want it to be told. So local TV definitely helped out with that. I was the noon producer. So that was a brand new show that I helped start up. I was the first producer of it, and it got to #1 in the rankings in its first year. And then I was also the Friday night football reporter and the fill-in anchor for sports. So I did a few different roles in the local TV. Whenever I did that, that was 2 years in Chattanooga, Tennessee for the NBC affiliate. And then I got sent to a homicide and a house fire and a two semi collision wreck. But it was the homicide that I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I signed up for sports, not news.
Yeah.
And so I can't go to, I do not do, I'm way too emotional to be able to. I don't know how they do it. It really does take a toll. And I was in Chattanooga for some really tough stories. Whenever there was the school bus crash, it killed 6 little elementary kids. There was the tornadoes, the wildfires that went through the Smokies. I was there for some really tough times. And so it just really put things into perspective for me, about what I value and what I'm passionate about. And a lot of people had to talk to somebody professionally because of everything that people had seen in that 2-year time span. And I was just like, I can't do this. I got to get back to sports. And I just got extremely lucky that I applied to this school called UCF during the 2017 football season. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think I got hired, I think it was October, but I officially got here. It was the day of the USF game.
I remember that we
So,
met in the press box, and I'm like, welcome, and you picked a heck of a time to show up. It's one of the greatest football games in the program history.
Time to show up for sure.
You get into that,
so
and then you have all the whole Scott Frost story also unfolding as well. So it's like timing is wild.
Yeah, so I definitely got here at a very, very good time.
Well, that's
But
good.
that was my path to here.
I never knew about the SEC Nation portion of it. I never knew that about you. Was that like?
Yeah.
That was at the beginning? Was that because I remember I used to watch? I watched the show. Joe Tessitore used to be the original host.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
Joe Tess has been a mentor to me.
Oh.
He's one of the nicest people you will meet in the industry, hands down.
I did not know that. He called the Georgia Tech UCF football game to start the year there, and then Laura Rutledge took over.
Yeah.
Did you get to know her?
Yes, Laura, and I would say Maria Taylor, probably my top 2 mentors. But that whole SEC Nation crew, all of them, because they knew what I wanted to do. They had known what I had done already in the past, and they knew how I would go to the schools midweek. And it was one of the 4 schools for either SEC Nation or College Game Day. And so they knew that I was getting that experience, and anything that I was doing, they would look at it and give me feedback. Marcus is another one. Marcus Spears, he still to this day, send me your stuff. I'll look at it and just give me feedback. Like, they don't have to do that. They're so busy. And even whenever we had the Charge On tour in New York, met up with Marcus just to catch up. They still are just so nice. I would call them more than mentors. They've become friends over the years, especially Laura and Marcus. But that entire SEC Nation crew was incredible. Tim, he's another one. It kills me and I tell him that too. It kills me as a Tennessee alum, but he's so nice. So nice.
You feel guilty too, honestly, right? You feel guilty because you probably felt guilty because you probably rooted against him when he was playing Tennessee and you hated it. Now you get to know him, you're like, oh man, he really is a nice guy.
I never said anything bad about him when he was playing at Florida, but I definitely did root against his Florida teams. So, yeah, no, whenever I met him, it's honestly sickening how nice he is. So he's so nice. He was so friendly to everyone. We'd be like, Tim, we got to go. He was like, let me just sign this for this one more person. Let me just do this one more person. He always wanted to try to like be nice to everyone. It was honestly sickening, but he's so nice.
Yeah, I've had people tell me that too. So, and Laura's great. I've known Laura way back when she was doing covering recruiting. And she covered like the Notre Dame Florida State game in 2011 Champ Sports Bowl, and she was like doing it for like recruiting sites and stuff like that. And I've been so excited for her to see how it's exploded now, where she's doing NFL live hosting and really has become a huge name in the industry and has done a lot of different stuff. And she kind of did a lot of stuff with Tua with his gruesome injury and kind of following that story, which I thought was groundbreaking. And that's got to mean a lot to you that you can go to somebody like her still to pitch, think about ideas. Hey, what do you think about this? I'm doing this piece. Should I do that? Like, that's got to mean a lot to you that you have people like that that can help you and learn in this industry.
Yeah, no, I'm very, very fortunate that I have made those connections through SEC Nation, and that that's one of my biggest pieces of advice whenever for our interns that we have now. Who in this industry matters. Never, never burn any bridges, because you never know how that person's going to help you out later on. And even though the interns, they look up to me and they think that I have life figured out because I'm their boss, they're not even close. And so it's nice. And whenever I say I go to my mentors, I don't think it really clicks to them like, oh, like she still has questions too, so like never stop learning, because there's, especially being a creative, you can always grow. So having those mentors, it really means so much to be able to still go to them to this day.
Last couple questions here. So obviously, as you're going to do a lot more features, you're going to do a lot of stuff in your career, wherever it takes you and all that. But I have to believe this feature is going to stay with you throughout your career. Like, this has to be at the top of your list, right? If not number one, it's got to be right there close to it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of the more special features I've done. I would say this one and we called it Family. Those two are probably, those are the two that I've done here at UCF that are always going to hold a special place in my heart. That I was able to tell that, because it's not just them trusting me telling their story of a injury, coming back from an injury, or which, yes, that's a lot for an athlete to trust you with telling their comeback story. But this was more than an on the field story, where Bam trusted me telling the story of everything he's gone through with his family, of losing his dad, his stepdad, and then his and Casey's relationship off the field and how it's really helped them. Alea being the premature baby and everything she's had to overcome and be able to open up about all of that. It's very special and very rare that somebody trusts you to do that. And the fact that both of them have trusted me to do that, it really does mean a lot, and that will definitely stick with me.
That's a great point. I'm glad you brought up the Bam Moore feat. I've forgotten about that. That was, when was that? That was
not this season, but last.
That's right. See, I'm glad you kept track. It's kind of weird to keep track with everything that's going on.
Yeah.
That was a good one. That was a great one there. And this was a fantastic one. And I'm proud of you. I'm excited that you got to do it, and you did phenomenal work. I told you that, and I'll keep telling you that. It's probably some of the best work I've seen. Congrats on it. I know the Whites are excited about it. Tell the audience where they can find your work, because you got more. I mean, good luck topping it. I mean, but as the industry is, I can relate. I mean, you just have to go on to the next one, because that's the way it goes. You can't reflect on the last one. You kind of move on to the next one and see what else comes out.
Yeah.
But where can they find you?
Yeah, it's on Twitter and Instagram. It's at Sami Kincaid, SamiKincaid. Just my name straight up. Keep it real simple.
That's right. And you can follow, if you haven't watched it, I encourage you to watch the Alea White feature. It's on the UCF YouTube page. It's on the social media. It's on the UCF softball Twitter. It's all over the place in social media. That's a phenomenal story that I think will register throughout the season in college softball and beyond. Sami, this was fun. I'm glad we got to finally do this. Now we just got to get you on the booth with me at some point and maybe chat.
I would love it. I used to play softball.
Oh, I didn't know that. What position?
You play softball. Let's do it.
What position? What position did you play?
I played center and shortstop. 10.
Wow.
I didn't really like playing shortstop. I took a bad bounce once, and my dad was the coach. And so I was like, you're never doing that to me again. I'm never playing short again. But
that's a lot of action. It's a lot of action at shortstop. So
yeah, but center, I played center in high school.
Wow. I did not see. I'm learning things about you. This blows me away. How do we not know this all this time? All right. We'll definitely have to get you in the booth then at some point, like to talk softball there and talk about more there, but enjoy it. Great job. Great to talk to you. Great to catch up with you. And I'll definitely see you soon.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks so much, Elo.